Hello, my name is Miguel Garza, and I want to talk about Che Guevara, the guerrilla myth. In 1967, the Argentine Ernesto Che Guevara died in Bolivian land at the age of 39. And today, more than half a century after his death, thousands of people carry with pride his effigy, on which he appears with a lost look, a sparse beard, a prominent brow, and wearing his classic beret with a star. This is because his figure is currently elevated to a category of myth, which has been the subject of numerous studies and biographies. However, the harsh truth is that the guerrilla also has numerous detractors who accuse the Rosarino of being a bloodthirsty person and a merciless murderer, and nothing is further from reality. It turns out that Che Guevara was not a very pristine person, and he is not passing the judgment of history well. Given that in these times in which violence and armed struggle are increasingly publicly disapproved, the details of their excesses emerge and the victims of those years begin to be listened. As an irony of life, among Che's fervent followers, there are numerous people who will never have fit into the mold that he designed for the new man. That individual had to be moved by hatred as a factor of struggle and know how to become a selective and cold killing machine, as he warned in his last published message in 1967. As if that were not enough, Guevara carried out many actions against of homosexuals, calling them sexual perverts, and with the help of the also declared homophobe Fidel Castro, interned them in labor camps. In addition to this, the author of the book La Cara Oculta de Che, Jacobo Manchover, say that Guevara attended the executions carried out in the first year of the Cuban Revolution, with which he earned the nickname of the Little Butcher of La Cabaña, or in Spanish, El Carnicerito de la Cabaña. Sometime later, in 1964, from the United Nations Tribune, he boasted of his action. He said, we are shooting and will continue to shoot as long as necessary, say the guerrilla. In fact, Che's legacy and relevance in terms of achievements is almost null, although paradoxically, he became a symbol of historical changes with which he didn't identify at all and for which he didn't fight. And that only happened after his death, when thousands of young activists took to the streets around the world and changed the way in which they live, in which their children live, and today their children's children. In other words, the millions of people around the planet who wear Che's t-shirt with his portrait are the product of what he became to symbolize. They, unlike him, this bring about radical changes in the society, although not in the way that the revolutionary would have hoped. The reason why Che became the figure that he is today is because despite the atrocities he committed, the guy had tough character, was persistent, honest, and fought hard to achieve a new type of socialism. Regarding this, John Lee Anderson, the author of the book Che Guevara, Una Vida Revolucionaria, commented, beyond his communist ideas, he was recognized for his warrior virtues, the virtues of a man who was willing to fight for his ideas and inclusive die for them. Even Felix Rodriguez, the man that you see, a CIA agent who was present at the time of the Che's capture, recognized that he was a man willing to give all for his ideas. He said in an interview, the guy was dedicated to his ideas, which were obviously wrong and were a total disaster, but was very persistent. He was tired, he was almost dead, and he was trying to move on. He didn't give up. Although the CIA agent also added. But on the other hand, he was a murderer who enjoyed killing people and who was full of hatred towards the enemy, a person who commanded to kill dozens of humans. And yes, that is totally true. The man murdered hundreds of people in order to get his goal, an issue on which Jacobo Machover gave his opinion, and he said the next. Now, if he was willing to die for his ideas, what I reproach him is that he was willing to kill for his ideas without the silence, compassion, or mercy. And despite the fact that Ernesto Guevara was an intolerant and violent person, in the end, his figure will be immortalized for the rest of history. And in this sense, the legacy that he leaves us is not so much his actions as a revolutionary, nor his achievements as a guerrilla, but rather a cultural legacy, which appears just months after his death, when appear all the activists and young revolutionaries. Che is not exactly an historical personality. He's more like a prefabricated product in order to live a representative of the leftist revolutionary. Guevara was perfect for this paper. He was credited with having a warrior spirit, an adventurous life, a rebellious character, and a supposed personality of an immaculate idealist. And this is someone to whom to feel identified. I mean, one of ours. This is why Che Guevara generates so much controversy, and this is why his figure has not completely died, and that is why he'll never die. Ernesto Guevara would have preferred to be remembered as the martyr revolutionary and not as the guerrilla who became a killing machine. So for which we can thank him is for becoming the cultural icon that he is today. That is his legacy, his relevance, and his glory. Thank you very much. That's all. And this is the reference that I use for the work.